AITA for asking my sister to leave after she tried to kick me out of my own house. My 26F sister, who I'll call Emily, moved in with her husband, 29M, who I'll call Roger, 2 years back. Emily and I were never very close, but we were family nonetheless. Recently, they decided to get their house renovated, and because it's been quite disastrous at their place, they asked if they could move in with me last week. I was a little shocked because we haven't spoken in a while, but I said it would be fine with me. Emily wanted to have a talk. She asked if her and Roger could have the place to themselves on Christmas Day and Christmas Eve. I asked where she thinks I can go. Her response: I don't know, get a motel. She continued to tell me how I can afford a couple days in a motel and it won't kill me. She told me it's nothing against me, it's just that they have their own traditions and like to spend the holiday together. They chose to get their house renovated during this time, knowing it would interfere with their Christmas traditions. So, I asked them to leave. I can't put my life on hold and move out because they want to spend the holiday with each other. They won't be homeless. My parents took them in, but they called me absolutely infuriated because I refused to let them stay, and wouldn't let them enjoy the holiday after all the trouble they went through with the renovations. AITA, edit, thank you for the awards and support. I keep seeing the "how could you be an asshole" comment. I understand it, but my entire family did turn against me. That sort of thing messes with your head. Thank you nonetheless for all of your help. NTA. That's just insane. Who asks that? Be happy someone is letting you stay at their place for a while. Will they ask your parents to leave their home now so they can have their Christmas, or is it just you who they would ask this of? NTA, your sister is off her rocker. Your parents are out of line too. If her and her husband want to be alone for the holiday, they can go to a hotel. To be fair, the parents probably were not told the whole story, probably just that Op kicked them out and refused to let them practice their Christmas traditions. I have a feeling the sister happened to conveniently forget to mention that they tried to kick Op out of the house. NTA. I'm not even sure how you could possibly think you're the asshole here. What an audacious thing to ask you to do. I didn't, until my parents made me feel like the Grinch. Info. Are your parents leaving their house on Christmas so your sister can host her annual sex under the tree party? Like, loud or kinky sex is the only thing that makes sense here for why she asked you to leave your own house. Obviously NTA. My exact thoughts. They must have some weird sexual traditions if they wanted the whole house to themselves. AITA for kicking my brother-in-law out and reporting my therapist. Let me explain. Even though I don't like to talk about it, I, male, 25, was involved in an auto accident. I was the one driving, and lost my dad who was with me at the time. I had untreated PTSD for nearly a year. I couldn't speak about it to anyone. My sister got me in therapy 2 months ago because she said that I needed it. This is our first holidays without dad, and I wasn't intending on doing anything this year, but the family decided to come and spend time with me. My aunt, my cousin and her kids, my sister and my brother-in-law, and my mom. My brother-in-law started bringing up the accident in detail, exactly the way I'd describe it, like he heard it from me. The number of sessions I've attended so far. Brought up the name of my therapist and asked if he's the one I've been seeing. Then he started asking me how I'm doing / if my therapy sessions are benefiting me or not / and telling the exact time I got into therapy. And then casually said that I shouldn't tell people that I feel responsibility for what happened, implying that I told my therapist that. I was taken aback. I asked how he knew all that. My sister said she didn't tell him and I didn't tell anyone. My brother-in-law looked confused when he noticed how upset I was and said that it was a coincidence the therapist happens to be one of his friend's brother. He's known my therapist for 5 years and that's how he knew, since his friend said my name sounded familiar. I was shocked. Everyone was looking at me and my aunt started talking about me telling everyone about the accident. I was so infuriated I found myself lashing out at my brother-in-law, and he started talking about how I need to deal my anger issues, disregarding that he he told the entire family about my sessions. After arguing with him and listening to him blaming me for how I reacted, I ended up telling him to leave. My sister sided with him, then they both left. My aunt defended him and said that I shouldn't have yelled at him and hurt my sister's feelings, that he was just worried about me. I was so mad, especially when they all started guilt-tripping me and berating me for what I did. I sent my therapist an email telling him what happened after I couldn't get a hold of him and mentioned that I will be reporting him and file a complaint against him for disclosing information without my consent. So far I haven't heard from him, and what bothers me is that I'm not close with those people, and hearing them gossip about me like that is not okay. My brother-in-law has always been like this, but it never occurred to me that he'd do this. The family said I ruined dinner for them and that I overreacted and was lashing out at everyone for no reason. I feel terrible. They said they gathered to comfort me and I caused a scene. NTA. Follow through on reporting him. Know your trust was betrayed, but please find another therapist. Don't let this despicable excuse for a therapist keep you from getting help. Maybe a referral from your primary care doctor. What about your sister? She got you into therapy. Did she choose the therapist? Seems too coincidental to me. Yes, she was the one who pressured me into going to therapy. She referred me to my therapist but never mentioned that she or brother-in-law knew him or anything. Otherwise I wouldn't have agreed to go. NTA, I'm sorry this happened to you. You're not the ass at all. Your therapist violated your confidentiality, and that's a very serious thing. Report them and let them suffer the consequences. Focus on your betterment and it doesn't matter what others say. You didn't ruin Christmas. I really hope you're able to find peace someday. I know my brother-in-law, he's always disrespecting my boundaries, and to even think about him talking to people about personal stuff like that is incredibly infuriating. They tell me that I need to control my anger. They're blaming me for how I reacted, and they still have no idea that I'm now having an issue with my therapist. NTA. Your therapist definitely should be reported and hopefully lose their license. Therapists should never be sharing their clients' names, much less going into detail about what the clients are sharing with them. People who ruined dinner are the people who decided to spend time with you and then did not stop your bill from deciding to share what is going on with your therapy to the rest of your family. You rightfully wished that your privacy be valued, but he couldn't be bothered to show you that respect. The person who ruined dinner was your bill, and everyone who sided with him. You're right. Part of me believes he did it on purpose. This isn't the first time he gets involved in personal matters, and I'm not sure if he shared with other friends and how long they've been gossiping about what I've experienced. NTA. HIPAA laws exist for a reason. Your therapist is an idiot and your bill is a terrible person. How can you pry into someone's personal pain and then weaponize it in front of others? Honestly, I can't fathom your pain. I hope you find a way to cope, for this situation is totally unfair to you. AITA For telling my dad his favorite Christmas memory is one of my least favorite. I need to hear from others on this. When I, 21F, was 8, my mom died. 2 years later he was married again. That first Christmas after he remarried, I asked my dad if we could spend a few hours Christmas Eve at the lake we used to go to every year with my mom, just the two of us. He said sure, but then brought his wife and her 2 kids along and we spent it together. I was so upset and mad, and it ruined the intention of going to have one last moment where I felt like it was just the 3 of us. Not really, but it brought a closeness when we went there, just the 2 of us, and I wanted it one last time. I always made it known it wasn't what I wanted, and my dad knew I was mad. But he always talked about how that was one of his favorite Christmas memories because it brought back our first family Christmas. I always wondered if he was talking like that to try and convince me that I felt the same way, because he always ignored my feelings on it. Anyway, I was talking to him for a little while yesterday and he brought up the memory again, and I asked him to stop. He told me he didn't know what I meant, and I told him the memory might have been his favorite Christmas memory, but I hated it and I did not look back fondly on it. He asked me how I could hate the memory of the first Christmas we had as a family with his wife and her kids. I told him because I had wanted one last Christmas memory of just the 2 of us. I said even an hour would have been better, but he ruined it by including them. He said he thought I understood why they were included, and I said no, he just didn't want to accept that I was mad about it. He told me it was important to cement family bonds, and I told him if I could I would gladly forget that memory. He got mad and told me I didn't need to try and shame him for loving that memory. I told him I just wanted him to stop bringing it up to me. He's demanding an apology, and he told me I am selfish for saying a memory was ruined because we included our family. I told him he would never understand, and I hung up on him. He messaged me after and told me he still wants the apology and for me to get over myself. AITA? NTA, he's not listening to you. He understands your feelings, but doesn't want to deal with the possibility that he fucked up. He actually owes you an apology. NTA, he wants you to apologize because you made him feel bad. But he doesn't realize, because he hasn't thought deeply about it, he feels bad because he did the wrong thing by not accepting your feelings. He feels guilty, but doesn't recognize it. You make him feel guilty by being unhappy about the memory, but instead of him taking responsibility for his mistake and apologizing to you, he contextualizes his hurt as being caused by you. So he wants an apology from you. Try this. Kindly, with patience in your voice, explain that you understand he values family unity, and his intentions with including his second wife and kids were good intentions, but he made a mistake and hurt you. You know he loves you and didn't mean to hurt you, but he did. Give that sentence space to let it sink in. If he argues that point, calmly set him straight. He hurt you. He doesn't get to tell you your feelings aren't valid. It would help him and you for him to apologize for not realizing the hurt he caused you by making the decision he did, even though his intention was good. Apologizing for that isn't an apology for wanting the family to be united. Do not apologize for your own feelings. NTA, he didn't care about your feelings, only about his. He, as your father, had the duty to protect you and to try to understand you. These were really difficult times to you and he didn't care. He preferred to bring the new family instead of respecting your wishes and had quality time with her daughter. You have nothing to apologize. You ask him to stop bringing these memories to you and he didn't want. Then, you explained to him why you don't like it and he got mad instead of trying to understand your feelings. He is the one with the problem here and the one who should apologize to you. You were a kid making a really difficult transition in your life, but he didn't care about it. NTA, mom here of a blended family. I made the mistake of doing something similar. Thought it would bring my kiddos joy to be included and it didn't. At all. They were very upset. I didn't know how upset until years later. Eventually they told me and I apologized for hurting them. His intent wasn't to hurt you, but that was the result. It took courage to tell him your perspective, and whether or not he sees it is perfectly okay to tell him that something he brings up repeatedly is painful to you. That's a healthy boundary you set. Should value how his actions and continued actions make you feel.